Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
Welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm Alex.
And I'm Morgan. It's Friday, December 26th, 2025, and, well, we're here to break down some pretty dense but really consequential news from the past week.
That's right. And we're going to give you the technical breakdown you need, but also connect it all back to, what it actually means for you.
Let's start with a quick look outside our world of tech and finance. If you're traveling after the holiday, you'll want to pay attention.
Yeah, that atmospheric river that hit us here in California with all that heavy rain and mountain snow, that's finally winding down, thank goodness.
It is. But that whole system has kind of slid east. So now we're seeing the Great Lakes, the northern and mid-Atlantic, even southern New England. They're dealing with a wintry mix.
We're talking freezing rain, sleet, snow, all the fun stuff.
Exactly. And it's going to be happening today through Saturday morning, so it's pretty hazardous out there.
Right. The real danger with that kind of mix isn't just the slick roads, it's the ice building up on trees, on power lines.
Big potential for power outages there, so if you're out and about, please just be careful.
Okay, let's pivot to the markets. It was a little bit of a sleepy day, which is pretty typical for the day after Christmas.
Yeah, volume was soft, but the key thing to look at is the momentum for the whole week. That's still looking pretty strong.
It did feel a little soft at the close. The Dow was down just a tiny bit, 0.15%?
And S&P 500 was right there with it, down about 0.12%.
But like you said, you zoom out to the whole week since Monday, and both are still up. They're holding on to gains of around 0.9%.
So a pretty good week for investors overall. Post-holiday softness is totally normal.
The one exception, as usual, seems to be Bitcoin. It's still on its own path.
It really is. Down about 0.25% for the day. But if you look at the week, it's down a bit more, about 1.69% since Monday.
Just hovering right under that $87,000 mark.
Context is everything.
It is. Now, before we get into our main stories from the Snarful Tech article report, what we call the Morning Star, we want to talk about a great place to maybe use some of those gift cards you got yesterday.
We are talking about Old Glory. They are just an iconic spot for music and sports fan merchandise.
Seriously, if you've got that techie friend who is also, secretly a huge classic rock fan or loves some obscure sports team, Old Glory is your place.
It is fantastic stuff for the holidays or really anytime.
And we've got a great deal for you. You can get 15% off your entire purchase by using the promo code SNARFUL at checkout.
Just head over to oldglory.com.
That's promo code SNARFUL for 15% off.
Okay, let's unpack our first story. And I think this is arguably the most complex, and probably most important piece of tech news we've seen all year. It really points to where AI is going.
It involves NVIDIA, who we all know is the king of AI chips, and a smaller but incredibly fast startup called Groq.
The first reports that came out were wild. The headlines were all saying NVIDIA was buying Groq for $20 billion, all cash.
Yeah, and that sent shockwaves everywhere because Groq had just been valued at under $7 billion. It was this absurd premium. It looked like a total buyout. It seemed like a really aggressive, almost hostile move to just swallow a competitor whole. But the reality is a lot more nuanced and maybe even more brilliant.
It really is. What's been confirmed is that it's a strategic, non-exclusive technology licensing agreement. It's focused entirely on what's called inference.
So Groq is staying independent.
Exactly. They're still their own company, new CEO. They're even keeping their Groq cloud services running.
Okay, hold on. If it's non-exclusive, that means Groq could, in theory, turn around and license the same tech to NVIDIA's rivals, like AMD. So why on earth would NVIDIA pay $20 billion for that?
And that is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? This is where we have to connect the dots, because NVIDIA didn't just buy a license. They bought the brains.
The people.
The people. This is a massive talent acquisition. The deal brings over Groq's founder, Jonathan Ross, who's a legend. He's a former Google TPU engineer. Plus their president, Sunny Madra, and other key team members. They're all moving to NVIDIA.
So they're paying to make sure those brilliant minds are integrating this tech for NVIDIA and not for anyone else. That protects the investment.
Precisely. But to really get why this is so genius, you have to understand the tech itself.
Yeah.
You have to understand the difference between AI training and AI inference.
Right. So for those of us who aren't semiconductor engineers, break that down for us. Why has this become such a critical point for NVIDIA?
Okay, think of it like this. AI training is like a student going through medical school. It takes years, massive amounts of data. It's incredibly intense. NVIDIA's GPUs, their H100s, they are the absolute champions of that. They're built for that heavy lifting.
Got it. The study phase.
Right. But AI inference? That's when the doctor has graduated and is actually practicing medicine.
Yeah.
They have to respond instantly to a patient's question.
That's the AI in action when you ask a chatbot a question or use a copilot.
And the speed of that response is everything. We all hate lag, right? That's the
Right.
bottleneck.
Okay, so where does NVIDIA's classic hardware fall short there?
Well, their GPUs rely on external memory, which is fantastic for moving huge chunks of data during training. But for those rapid-fire inference tasks, it creates tiny but noticeable delays, latency.
And Groq solved that.
Groq came at it from a totally different angle. They built these specialized chips they call LPUs, or language processing units, and the big innovation is that they use a ton of on-chip SRAM memory.
In simple terms.
It's like fifth. NVIDIA's method is having to run across the street to the library every time you need a piece of information. Groq's SRAM is like having every tool you need sitting right there on your desk.
So it's faster, way faster.
It's almost instantaneous. It offers ultra-fast, predictable inference. And that's the new battleground. The race to train models is maturing. Now it's all about making them usable and instant for millions of people.
So this deal is basically NVIDIA buying an insurance policy for its future. They're integrating this LPU and SRAM advantage right into their own ecosystem.
Exactly. They're neutralizing the threat from other specialized chip makers before it can even start. It's a classic strategic move. Pay a huge price now to own the architecture of the future.
And the market seems to agree. NVDA stock saw a nice little bump on the news. Investors can see the long-term play here.
It's really a fascinating move.
It is. Okay, from a deep dive on hardware strategy, let's do a complete 180 and look at a very different but just as significant story that happened over the holiday.
We're heading across the Atlantic to the UK, where Jimmy Kimmel delivered Channel 4's annual alternative Christmas message.
And this is a pretty big tradition over there, right? It runs at the same time as the monarch's official Christmas address.
It is, and it's always a platform for some, let's say, thought-provoking commentary. And Kimmel definitely used it for that.
He didn't pull any punches, did he? The commentary was very focused on U.S. politics.
Not at all. He has some really striking quotes. He said things like, "Tyranny is booming over here," and from a fascism perspective, this has been a really great year.
He also took a direct shot at President Trump, calling him King Donnie VIII.
Yeah. And to really get the full weight of this, you have to remember the context of what happened to Kimmel's own show back in September.
Right. He was suspended by ABC Disney.
Indefinitely at first. It was after he made some comments about the killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. The fallout from that turned into this huge national debate about free speech and the press.
And President Trump weighed in pretty heavily on that, celebrating the suspension.
He did, which just poured gasoline on the whole fire. So Kimmel used this international stage to reflect on that whole episode.
So what was the main point he was trying to make to the UK audience?
He called his return to the air, which happened pretty quickly, a Christmas miracle in September.
Yeah.
But he said the real story wasn't about him, it was about the public's reaction.
What did he say about that?
He said millions of people, even people who can't stand him or his politics, all stepped up to defend the principle of free expression. His quote was pretty blunt.
Let's hear it.
He said, "We won, the president lost, and now I'm back on the air every night giving the most powerful politician on earth a right and richly deserved bollocking."
He definitely embraced the local slang there.
He did. But beyond that personal victory, he had a bigger warning for the UK. He was basically using the US as a cautionary tale.
Saying that what's happening here isn't unique.
Right. He said that silencing critics isn't something that only happens in places like Russia or North Korea. He claimed the US was, in his words, literally and figuratively tearing down the structures of our democracy.
Wow. That is a very stark message to send from that kind of platform.
It is. And he mentioned things like the free press, judicial independence, and even referenced the partial demolition of the White House East Wing as examples.
What's really interesting here is how this connects a very personal American political feud to this huge global conversation about the health of democracy and the role of the free press.
And that's the key takeaway for you listening at home. It shows how these high-profile platforms are constantly being tested and how these battles are influencing perceptions all over the world, far beyond just the U.S.
Absolutely. Okay, incredible analysis on two very different but equally important stories. Before we recap, we want to thank another partner that makes this show possible.
We want to give a shout out to Scony. If you're a golfer looking to upgrade your gear in the new year, Scony is the place to go.
That's Skoni, pronounced Scony. They are the premium golf shoe store. Just fantastic footwear designed for real comfort and performance on the course.
And you can get 15% off your entire purchase when you use the promo code SNARFLE at checkout.
A great way to start the 2026 season. Just head over to scony.com and use the code SNARFLE for 15% off.
All right, so let's do a quick recap of what we've unpacked today.
First, that NVIDIA and Groq deal. The headline was about an acquisition, but the real story is about the future of AI. It's all about low latency inference.
Right. NVIDIA spent a fortune, not just for a license, but for the talent. The key architects who can build that speed into their ecosystem and protect them from rivals. It's a long-term power play.
And second, Jimmy Kimmel's alternative Christmas message in the UK. He used that international platform to frame his suspension not as a personal fight, but as a victory for free expression.
And as a stark warning to other democracies about what he sees as the erosion of those institutions in the U.S., it really globalized a domestic political fight.
It just shows that the battle for dominance, whether it's in AI chips or in public opinion, is never really over. Every move is a calculated play for future influence.
Which leads us to a final thought for you to chew on today. If the biggest value in tech is shifting from just inventing something new to acquiring the people who know how to scale that invention, does that mean the next generation of tech billionaires won't come from a startup IPO?
But instead from these huge strategic talent and technology acquisitions, something to think about as we head into the weekend.
We're here to help at Snarful, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarful.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.